Good morning and welcome to Valley Views. I'm your host, Glenn Edison. We're certainly glad to have you today. And today we have with us Jeff Harmon. He's the public defender for the 12th Judicial District. And before I forget it, thank you to our sponsors, BTC Fiber. You can see this interview on their YouTube page, BTC Fiber YouTube, as well as BTC Fiber's Channel 18. So Jeff, it's good to have you today. Thank you for being with us. First, let's talk about a little bit about your background and how long you've been in office.
Absolutely. Well, background, I was raised up here in Sequatchie County, graduated from the schools here, ended up going to UTC for undergrad and went out to Memphis for law school. Came back here in '86 and right across the street here from the chamber, worked 6 years at the firm of Greer and Smith. And in 1992, I was approached and recruited to join the public defender's office. I worked there for 18 years as an assistant public defender when my boss retired, and I was then appointed by the governor and have been fortunate enough to be elected twice since.
So that's been 12 years?
Well,
I mean, as a
district public defender, January of 2011, so a little over 11 years, yeah,
11.
going on 12.
Going on 12. Oh, all right, good. Now, I wanted to, for those who may not know just exactly what a public defender is, could we elaborate some on that and talk about that so they can be better informed?
Absolutely. Everyone has watched TV shows and movies where if it's a legal drama that at some point someone is told you have the right to have a lawyer. If you can't afford one will be appointed to represent you. I'm that guy. In 1989, the General Assembly of Tennessee created the Public Defenders Conference. Before then, when someone needed a lawyer appointed, the judge would just look out in which lawyers were there in court on a given day and would appoint you sort of randomly. And the General Assembly decided, why don't we set up an office that is all they do, those types of cases, specialize only in those cases, because if you think about it, the state has the district attorney's office, that is all they do. And it was also part of the reason decided if you do it right the first time, if possible, it's much less likely for a case to get reversed, kicked back. Everyone goes through all of the stress of that again, whether it be victims, defendants, witnesses. And the thinking was, and I think it was correct, let's try to get these folks to do just this and do a good job at it.
Well, that's good, and because I'm sure you've seen plenty over the years you've been in the office.
Everything. I've tried everything from public intoxication to first-degree murders, everything in between.
So it just whatever they hand you, that's what you take.
And that is something, now and again a person will ask me, and they're well-intentioned, like, how do you feel about representing this person or representing that person? And it's two things. One is we don't get to choose our clients. The court, the way it starts out is a person, if they say they can't afford a lawyer, they fill out an affidavit to show their income or lack of income. The judge looks at it and decides whether to appoint my office. If he does, now and again, if the person has just no assets or they're in jail, they really don't have to pay anything. But there are a lot of folks, they may be working and have some income, just not enough to go out and hire a lawyer, what it would cost. So the court can order them to pay a certain amount every month or week to help defray those expenses.
Oh, okay. And
so that is something we do. But I also compare what I do, just like I take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, a doctor takes the Hippocratic Oath. And if a doctor is working in the emergency room and someone comes in, say with a gunshot, they're not asking, what's this person's background? Are they a good guy, bad guy, or whatever? That doctor just digs in and starts working because that's what they've taken an oath they're going to do. That's their job.
Right.
And that's the way what I do is I see it as my job to put up a good defense and really, go through those things that the Bill of Rights says that the civil liberties that you and I and everyone have is to protect and defend those.
Right, and so I know a lot of attorneys, they'll specialize.
Correct.
But with you, you're...
Well, if you think about it, I do specialize,
yeah.
but only in one field. But as far as the types of cases, you're absolutely right. It is our enabling statute where the public defenders were created. It says it includes juvenile cases, but for adults, cases where a deprivation of liberty is the language they use, but basically any charge where you could potentially go to jail, then the public defender gets involved. If it's some thing that just involves the possibility of a fine, then we don't get involved in cases like that.
Right. So you can go from, like you said, a murder to DUI.
And all in one day sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that where a DUI laws are one way and a murder's a lot different.
Correct. And right now the General Assembly is in session in Nashville, and it's likely that there will be a new set of laws coming out sometime this term, or amendments to old laws, and we do have to stay on top of that every year.
So that keeps you busy. Now, do you have a staff that helps you?
I do indeed. Now, thankfully, it has grown over the years to help us out, but I have 8 assistant public defenders, 2 investigators, and 4 administrative staff that do everything from help me manage the office, prepare documents. I have one admin staff lady that she does other things, but she handles all of our rehab admissions and trying to get people beds. And we stay pretty busy, but the reason we need a staff, I mean, it's not as big as the DA staff,
right,
but it's a decent sized staff because we cover 6 counties here in the 12th Judicial District.
I was going to ask you, that was another question I was going to ask you.
Okay.
What are the counties you cover?
Absolutely. Going north to south, Reagan, Bledsoe, Sequatchie, Marion, Grundy, and then on the other side of Montego, Franklin County.
Oh, okay.
So it's 120 miles from end to end, and 2 time zones, 2 area codes, two mountains you have to go over to go from one to the other. But it's a big district.
Well, that keeps you busy then.
It does indeed. A lot of traveling.
Yes, I'm sure it is. And so it's not always you. You have other staff
Correct.
attorneys. That
I often, like yesterday, I was in Bledsoe County. I personally cover circuit court in Bledsoe County, which is the trial level court. So yesterday I was, even though I'm the boss, if you want to call me that, I was in the jail seeing clients yesterday afternoon, and got home about supper time from that. But the other courts, I often will, like tomorrow, some of my people are double booked. There's court in Ray and Sequatchie, and they cover both. I'll be covering in Sequatchie General Sessions Court. So I handle my own courts, and I also float and cover courts when folks are shorthanded.
Right. So you of course, the court just stays busy. There's never
no shortage of customers. Yes.
Yeah. No day off.
Not really.
I mean, there are days I'm sure you don't go to court, but you're in the office studying up on cases.
Correct. Today is, when I leave here, will be an office day, but yesterday was visiting clients day, and like I say, tomorrow's I'll be in court. So I'm never really in the same place 2 days in a row very often.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of that is, of course, the law. You've been in for quite some time, but you still have to refresh yourself on what some of the laws are. So
you absolutely
depend on
do.
the case.
You absolutely do. And even if the law hasn't changed, if it's a case that perhaps you haven't handled in a while, trust me, I go back to the source, pull the code, make sure that nothing has changed, and that I remember it the way hopefully it's written, and get ready to go back out there.
Right, because there's many good attorneys out there all over the place. And
sure.
I'm sure you face many good attorneys.
I do, and the district attorney's office, their staff, like mine, they are full-time district attorneys, just like my people and I are full-time public defenders. And I'm sure the DA, you want the best people working for you. Uh-huh. That you can, you try to recruit talent and hopefully keep talent.
Right. And I'm sure. How many actually offices across the state, or do you know how many offices are across the state?
I can indeed. There are 31 judicial districts in Tennessee, and actually come August or September there will be 32. Williamson County, Franklin, Tennessee is really exploded in growth.
Yes.
And there were 3 rural counties attached to that district. And about a year ago, the General Assembly split the smaller 3 off, and they're going to be the 32nd district.
Oh, okay.
And they'll have a new district attorney and judge and public defender, and Williamson County will be standalone. There are the larger population counties, like next door in Hamilton County, Davidson, Knox. They are standalone districts. So we're the 12th judicial district. Hamilton County is the 11th judicial district. Some are really big like mine, and some next door, say Coffee County, is its own district. And we have different populations. It's
Right.
A lot of those lines are just for historical reasons. And in our district, we've just always been a big one.
Well, is it based on population, or does it matter?
They do look at population. A few years ago, there was a push in the legislature to try to make any county that had at least 100,000 people its own district. They didn't make those changes, but I think in time, as like with Williamson County, if you get a county that just has exploding growth in
Right.
time, they're likely to become their own district.
Well, and with the influx of so many people moving into Tennessee now,
Absolutely.
we may have more.
They are rolling in every day. You're right.
Yes, they are. Let's see. Now, this year, I know you have some competition for your position. Is that the first year you've had competition?
It is. In 2011, when I was appointed by the governor, if you receive an appointment when someone's retiring or resigning or passes away, and if you get the governor's appointment, it's until the next regular election. So in 2012, that was the next 2-year election. So I ran for the position, fortunately was unopposed, and finished out the last 2 years of Phil Condra. He was my mentor long term. Phil's still around and a good guy. He was a good boss for me for many years. So, and then in 2014, I ran again, and judicial races, which are judges, chancellors, DAs, and PDs, serve 8-year terms. So in 2014, I was elected again and was unopposed, and here we are. In 2022, the 8 years is nearly up. So this year, for the first time, I do have opposition.
Well, that's I get that's also good in a sense to have competition. It puts you on your toes.
It's never a bad thing to make sure you're doing the right thing, and to look back and say, am I doing well? Could I do better? And it's like I told some of the folks who, friends and family, I can't believe someone is running against you. And I always say, look, this is America. That's the way we do elections, is
Right.
if you're qualified to be on the ballot, you can put your name in there. I mean, obviously, I hope to return to the job I really am passionate about and believe in. That's up to the voters, but I believe in the system.
Right, and I like to see a lot of people out and get involved, because that means it's a good thing to get more people involved.
You're absolutely right. One thing about it being such a big district is all of the stops you make when you're running a campaign really keep you hopping. But it's good when people do want to come out, meet the candidates. I love when people ask me questions, because most people really don't know what we do. I mean, they have an idea because, well, unfortunately, most movies, the public defender doesn't come out looking too well. If you watch My Cousin Vinny, but the public defenders I deal with day in and day out, and when I'm at a conference and people from the other parts of the state, they're really just trying to make a difference, to work hard. And Glenn, I'll tell you what my philosophy has always been, is fairness. I truly, truly believe, as my dad used to say, he always rooted for the underdog. He'd watch sports, and I'd say, "Why are you pulling for that team?" He goes, "They're the underdog." And he would also say, "I think a man who doesn't have any money ought to be treated just like someone with money." And that philosophy has stuck with me, that a person, regardless of their resources, should have equal footing before the law. I mean, that's what's fair. We shouldn't have bias or favoritism one way or the other. Everyone should come in there. You know, you've seen the emblem of the Lady Justice with the blindfold holding the scales.
Yeah.
Justice is supposed to be blind. It's not because of what your last name is or what your bank account is. It's the rightness of the case of the parties, and that's what I believe in.
Well, I know you, with your experience, I know you've seen things over the years. So are there things you would like to try to change in your office or in that position?
No, that's a really good question. If I had the staff, and I realize that costs money, but so much of what we do now is related to addiction issues with people, because most of the people who say get into trouble for thefts, it's to feed a drug habit. And so that is why I would love to have more resources, but I do use the resources I have. I'm a member of I'm on the board of the Franklin County Drug Court, which is really great organization, and we have people from all through our district. It's located in Franklin County, but people from our entire district get to go over there. And I have several clients. I go to the graduations, and I love getting my neck hugged by people whose lives have turned around. I've set up relationships with 20 different rehabs in including Tennessee, 4 different states that we try to get people to. If I had the staff to do it and the resources, when these people come back home from these rehabs, oftentimes they have no choice but to go right back into the environment where they had the trouble. If there were some sort of a holistic approach to try to help people get jobs, keep jobs, try to get their driver's license back, because so many of those folks, you know, they don't have good driver's license or insurance, to try to get people working, paying taxes. And I've heard a long time ago, if you go to work and you come home tired, you're not going to get into that much mischief, you know, because you've come home and you're getting ready to go back to work the next day.
Yeah, you're tired.
You know, you're too tired.
Yeah.
And when we are able to help people, you know, get their lives back together, it helps everyone. Because if someone has been victimized, I mean, we see it so often. Some parent or grandparent will come to court because a child or grandchild with an addiction has forged checks on them or done, you know, stolen from their own family. And you're helping those families if you can, you know, after the person, if they deserve punishment, if they've done their time, but if you can get their life back together and get those problems taken care of, well, then that family is back together. These drug court graduations that I go to, very often you have families in the audience that thought they would never be reattached to the person who stole from them, hurt them, burned the bridges of love, and to see the whole family crying and hugging. I mean, that's what makes it all worth it. I'm getting actually chill bumps right now. That's the best stuff. I love that stuff.
Well, making a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely.
And I see the courts as one way to do that.
It is.
Of course, sometimes the options are not, you're limited.
Well, they are. And, you know, we live in an area that we only have so many resources.
Right.
You know, if you're in Chattanooga and you need to go to, say, your intensive outpatient treatment or mental health treatment, job training, public service, all these things that often go with a criminal case, you can get on a bus. If need be, you call an Uber. Out here in the country, it's getting better, but the transportation issues are a real thing. And that's one of the things you ask if I could change something. To have, I mean, SETHRA is a good system,
yes,
but it can only do so much.
Right.
That if we could get transportation for people until they can get their driver's license back, that would go a long way. And I would like to compliment our judges and the district attorney's office, because they've really been working with me on trying to furlough people perhaps from a jail cell to an inpatient rehab. And
that's good.
They are working hand in hand with me to try to make that happen, because, you know, they're being practical. They know just having somebody do a short sentence and then just release them back into the wild isn't fixing the problem.
Right.
They know that just warehousing someone often doesn't fix those problems. Get to the underlying issues, and as a team effort, we're doing our best. We're really trying.
Right, because staying in jail for years and years may not be the best answer.
Don't get me wrong. There's some things that are so bad, it's
Right.
going to carry a long sentence. But you're absolutely right. If it's someone who basically keeps getting into petty theft problems or, drug possession problems, I'm not saying that it's fine to go out and do that.
Right.
But the more, say, felonies you stack up, the longer your sentences are in the future. And you're absolutely right, Glenn. Putting someone away for a long time and they're coming out, they're just older, but nothing has changed, that's not really getting to the root of the problem. So we're looking for alternatives, and I'm open for suggestions. I really am. I would love for the more community involvement in that.
Well, now, how could people get in touch with you? I know your office is in Jasper, right?
Yes. I live here in Dunlap, but my boss had put the office in Jasper. It was a bit more centrally located for people to fan out in different directions. And so we have a good office there. I've kept the office there. Our office number is 423-634-8646. I don't call it that much, or on my phone it just says office.
Yeah.
But we've been fortunate enough, and I do a shout out to the people of Franklin County. When they built a new justice center several years ago, they put a couple of offices for the district attorney outside the courtroom. But not only that, they put a couple of offices for the public defenders.
Oh.
So 2 of my assistants, instead of having to travel from Jasper to over there, because they live up on the mountain in Mont Eagle and Grootley area, they're able to just drop off straight to the offices in Winchester every day, and it saves taxpayers mileage that they would have to pay the lawyer. But likewise, when you're able to spend less time traveling and more time at work and helping people, that's good. And fortunately, we were able, through our budget a few years ago, we have a satellite office in Ray County.
Oh, okay.
Now, they've opened a new justice center in jail.
Right.
And so the 2 people from Ray County, they get to go straight to that office every day. And that saves a lot of mileage and time.
Yes. Well, that was one thing I was going to ask you, if you had little offices in other counties. And
I'll be honest with you. Before, it just ran us to death when we didn't have that. Heck, when I used to when I was an assistant, I covered Ray, Bledsoe, and Sequatchie all by myself back in those days, and I was swamped.
Yeah.
But the back seat of my car was my rolling office. It'd be stack of that county, and that county, and there were sometimes it'd be a week before I would be back at the office to turn in files, get new files, and do things like that. It makes it so much easier to have a home base on the wing, out on the ends of the district, and then right in the middle. It makes my life better.
Oh, I'm sure it does. And you don't have to travel as far.
You're absolutely right. Usually each day, like today, I'm heading on down to Jasper, but at most I'm going 45 minutes or an hour to go, if I need to cover, from the main office, a court for someone else.
Yeah.
And that I'm about efficiency. I was raised up right here on Cagle Mountain in Sequatchie County. I never went hungry, but we didn't have a whole lot. And we learned to stretch a penny. And even though it's tax dollars, I treat it like, in some ways it's coming out of my own pocket. It's like, do we need to spend this money? If I think it's smart money, that this is going to help people, or pay a little now to save more later, I'll do that. I'll defend that every day. But I don't like to blow money. I just don't do it.
Excuse me.
Sure.
And then you mentioned too about if you could expand doing the rehabs and things like that. How do you go about doing that? Do you approach the legislature, or do you?
You're absolutely right. Well, what we use, because every district, judicial district, has a lot of the same problems that I have. Next door in Warren and Van Buren County, that's the 31st district. They essentially have the same problems we do here. The larger cities, they may have gang violence, things like that, that's different than here. But a lot of the underlying drug issues and lack of resources, is the same. So what we would probably do is, as a full conference, approach the appropriate people in the legislature with a request for a funding of, for this program or that program. I'll be honest, the people in Nashville, if we just show up with a really huge package, even if they think it's a good idea, it's unlikely. So we've learned to take baby steps and say, this year could we try to do this? And it's affordable. And then maybe a couple years later we'll go in for something else. I would say the legislature did fund a pilot program that has given our conference some social workers. We started out with just 3, 1 in each grand division. I wasn't lucky enough in in my division to get one, but the people who did get one in their office, they've helped so much because they're master's level social workers. They're not hand holders, but they are those. But they have really tried to do those things about transportation and trying to get them to job interviews and job trainings and things of that nature. If there's one thing that I would really like right now is if every district could get one of those workers, because I'm not too good to do any of that. But there are times I say, well, I'd like to be more like a lawyer today, and work on these legal issues, because quite often you're on the phone with mamas and grannies, and I'm glad when I can help. But those are the things that if I had that extra element to reach out to those folks and try to work out those problems, and then come to me and say, hey, here's what we're working on, and we can then all work on it together.
Yeah, because it takes a whole community,
It really does. And
village.
Family involvement is so important, because very often, if someone is in jail, a relative, and I keep saying mamas and grannies, that's usually who is calling, but the families, they want their loved one to get better, to stop misbehaving, to do these things. Now, and I will say this, Glenn, I keep talking about people getting into mischief and misbehaving, but I never ever forget that just because someone is accused of something doesn't mean that they're guilty of something.
Right.
And that's how I go into every case. In America we have the presumption of innocence, and I always presume that. What I was talking about with those more appropriate cases, when the facts are pretty clear and the person needs help, and until the person really wants the help, and I'm talking about the accused, the defendant, even once they're if they're convicted, once they've usually have to hit rock bottom, but when they're crying out, I'm ready, that's when it will take. Not, if you just want to go to rehab to get out of jail, it's not going to do you much good. But when and you start getting a feel after a while, the ones you think it would really help. And like I say, I like nothing better about my job than when someone you run into them at the grocery store, and last time you saw them they were just skinny as a rail and looked terrible, and then now they put their weight back on, their skin is clear, their eyes are bright, and they go, Mr. Harmon, I want to thank you. I was on death's door. Thank you for helping me. I don't do it for the thanks, Glenn, but it sure does make you feel good when you see a success story like that. That's why I get up every day, do what I do.
Because there's too many other stories on the flip side of that.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. In the paper every week, people are dying from overdoses, and the fentanyl that they're not probably taking on purpose, but it's mixed in with something, and then they're dead, and it's heartbreaking. And so when we can keep someone from that fate and their family from that grief, I don't want to take all the credit. It does take a team, but I'm proud to be leading the team.
Well, good, because it takes a good leader.
Well, I try my best. I'm learning every day. When you're an assistant and you see what the boss is doing, and thankfully Phil Condra had pulled me in and he told me he hoped I would succeed him one day. And so he would pull me into management decisions. And I'm so thankful that he did, because it helped me hit the ground running. But even then, there's just a lot more to it than you ever thought about. You know, there's the budgeting and then the allocation of who goes where and the resources. And I just hope every day I do a little better than I did the day before.
Yeah, because it's a tough job. I mean, it's not an easy job.
It's not, but I am running for it again.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not going to complain, but I stay, you know, my phone buzzes all the time. You know, you're never truly off duty, but that's okay. I mean, I ran for the office. I know what it carries, and I'd like to do it again.
Well, I certainly appreciate your dedication to the service, because it takes a dedicated person to do what you do.
I appreciate that, Glenn. That's nice.
Is there anything else you'd like to bring up that we haven't discussed?
You know, I could sit here and just brag on my people. So I will do a shout out to them. All of the people, you know, the office staff, the investigators that are out there beating the bushes, trying to find witnesses, and all the lawyers in my office who every day are doing, you know, their best in a tough situation. Glenn, there are days that I'll admit I feel like Lucy and Ethel, and those chocolates just keep coming, and we're doing our best, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so to my whole office, thank you.
Well, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And again, folks, you can see this on BTC Fiber's YouTube page as well as BTC Fiber's Channel 18. Until next time, have a good day. Hey everybody, this is Glenn Edison from Valley Views. We appreciate you watching our shows, and we would like for you to like, share, and follow us on Facebook, as well as like and subscribe to our YouTube page.
Brought to you by Bledsoe Telephone Cooperative, your full-service telecommunications provider right here in the Sequatchie Valley.